Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Nick O'Leary, and today we're having a look at the Mercedes-AMG A35 versus the 45 S. So the Mercedes-AMG A35 and A45 S both stand on the high-performance side of the very popular A-Class hatchback. Both are identical in terms of size and dimensions, both have the same awesome modern looks, and both have almost the same identical interior. But in 2022, with the A35 starting on the road from £40,900 and the A45S starting at £57,885 at almost £17,000 more, is it worth the price difference? Now yes, that is exactly what we're going to cover today. However, just before we dive into that, I will just add a quick note that these two cars that you see here today were made at different times, so one is slightly older than the other, which does mean a big thing because specification does vary over time and from country to country. Do double check with your local Mercedes-Benz if you do order one of these, as it may look slightly different to what you see here. So for example, if you order an A45S, those do come with the AMG aerodynamics package now as standard, along with many other things. So do double check if you do order one. But speaking of the exterior design, let's dive straight into that. So as these are both A-classes, they are of course going to be the same size. Well, almost anyway. The A45S is just slightly longer and higher than the A35, probably because of the spoiler. Now the A35 is the entry-level model into the Mercedes-AMG world. So for starts, compared to a normal A-Class, normal A-Classes usually feature a diamond grille just like this. However, when moving to the A35, they feature these kind of long horizontal lines going across the entire bumper, and one of my favourites you can always spot from a distance is of course the AMG logo just here. Now what happens when you go to an A45S? Well, that is where the big changes happen. Yes, now if you move across to the A45S, that's when you really start to notice things. This is called the AMG specific grille, and yeah, it's definitely a head turner. I'm pretty sure this was first seen on one of the facelifted Mercedes-AMG GTs or a C63 years ago, but yes, it's now only found on the highest performing AMGs. Used to be called the Pan America grille, some of you may remember that name, but now it's just called the AMG specific grille. So yeah, definitely a head turner, and still got that AMG logo on the bottom right, so you can spot it from a distance. Moving to the exterior even further, if you look really closely at the bonnet, this is completely flat with kind of two character lines just on the top here. But then look at the A45S, and those feature things called power domes. And those are kind of large bulges only found on that car there, the A45S, just giving that more angular look. Now, regular viewers to my channel will know that I don't always go into specification in that much detail, just because it varies from, well, in this case in point, model to model and year to year and country to country. But I do want to bring it up on these two, mainly because ordering a brand new A45S does come with everything as standard in the UK. But ordering an A35, you do have options for things called Executive, Premium and Premium Plus. I won't go into detail about what's in those packages, but just keep an eye out for things like sunroofs, electric seats, to ambient lighting, larger screens, upgraded sound systems, that sort of thing. But the reason why I bring it up, because in one of those packages is the AMG aerodynamics package, which you find as standard in this car. So you could make the A35 look like the A45S, excluding the grille and some other things which we'll cover in a minute. So if you do match that specification with the Premium Plus, the price difference then is only £12,000. So where is that £12,000 spent, and what do you get for that? Oh, of course guys, before I jump into that, let's just very quickly cover the interior before we get on to the good stuff. And yes, I will do a sound test on the engine and exhaust sounds of both of these. We'll put them back to back and see which one sounds better. I think you know which one I'll win. So let's cover off the interior first. So I'm currently here in the A45 S and we'll start on the seats. So these do have these race bucket styled seats as standard. Now, yes, they are firmer than the A35, so of course do try out both if you're considering one of these cars. It's not uncomfortable, it's just something that I've picked up on, so obviously do factor that in if you're considering just have a sit in both. But having said that, they look stunning, and I certainly wouldn't turn it down for my daily driver. Also, it's got these yellow kind of piping and yellow stitching on the seats, which just adds to that sporty look. Moving across to what you see on the front here, everything here is identical. So you get the same MBUX widescreen multimedia system, even the jet turbine air vents as well with the ambient lighting inside if you've opted for it. But one thing that is different is, of course, the yellow stitching on the steering wheel, which is quite nice. You don't get that in the 35. And also these buttons here. Now these are usually only found on high performing AMGs. Basically these buttons allow you to change the dynamic select here from your slippery, sports, comfort, race modes, that sort of thing. Yes, you can do it over here on the top left hand side, but you also do have another one on the left hand side which allows you to change the exhaust, make it a little bit louder, adjust the suspension, start stop, or kind of any of those things. Yes, you can do that down here in both cars, but the 45S has a couple of tricks up its sleeve with those extra buttons on the steering wheel. So then guys, let's get on to the good stuff. So if you're a true Mercedes-AMG fan, we know it's all about those numbers. So let's start off with this one. Both cars have a 2-litre engine, but actually that's kind of where those similarities end. This is where we start to see that £12,000 difference. So on an A35, you get 306 horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 4.7 seconds. That's pretty quick. That's definitely hot hatch territory. However, when it comes to that one over there, that A45 S, well, this is where it's got a few tricks up its sleeve even further. So this is also a 2-litre engine, but this engine right here is the world's fastest 2-litre engine, producing 421 horsepower and a staggering 0 to 60 time of 3.9 seconds. That is definitely something to brag about with your mates, if you own one of these, for sure. These also do feature the one-man, one-engine plaque as well, so again, I'm horrible with pronunciation, so hopefully I pronounced this right, but handcrafted by David Huffman, I think. David Huffman. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I don't want you to message me in the comments and tell me off for pronouncing your name wrong, but having said that, one-man, one-engine, absolutely incredible. 421 horsepower from a 2-litre engine. Insane. So 2-litre engines in both cars, but with that incredible power, what do they sound like? Well, there's only one way to find out. So yes, the Mercedes-AMG A45 S does feature an AMG high-performance exhaust, just giving it a slight edge over the A35. So basically it has a couple of valves in the back which can open and close, make it a little bit louder. And of course it has that awesome exhaust button on the inside that everyone always loves. Now yes, the A35, you can make it a little bit louder by putting it in Sport Plus. So that's what I did in this one. So what about other things? Well, let's move on to the chassis, brakes and suspension. So starting off with the chassis, to cope with this insane amount of power, the chassis does have to be strengthened in quite a few places, and that's what the Mercedes-AMG engineers have done. They've put strengthening bars and struts, even one here you can see just this black AMG bar going across there, just to keep the chassis and minimise any body roll or lean in the corners. I know most people who buy high performance cars, especially in the UK, do just use them as a daily driver on the road, which I'm super jealous of. But this can be a dedicated track car. There's a drift mode on this. You can drift this hatchback. Yes, it's four-wheel drive, but you can actually put the power to the back with a separate clutch in the back to kind of drift and go sideways. Again, everything on this car is just insane. But yes, those chassis bars, strengthening struts, things like that basically help minimize any lean in the corners, making sure all four wheels are in contact with the ground at all times. And of course, with all of that power, requires more powerful brakes. Now, the A45 S also features AMG high performance brakes. Now, these are usually what you find in motorsport, mainly because on traditional brakes, when you go to use them, and I'm talking like under high load where they get very, very hot, like on a track or literally in motorsport, they can fade. So basically, when you're approaching a corner or several corners in and you're really accelerating hard, then braking, they're going to get very hot very quickly, and then they won't work as well right when you need it the most. So these feature fade resistant materials. So basically, you've got maximum braking all the time. Now again, I know most people who purchase AMGs do use them on the road, but hey, if you ever took it on the track, you've got that extra braking right when you need it the most. Now, when it comes to the suspension setups, if you opted for the Premium Plus model in the UK this is, and of course correct at the time of recording, you can get the adjustable suspension on the A35, so it's almost the same as the A45 S. However, because of that stiffer chassis that I just mentioned, the A45 S will of course feel a little bit more firmer on the road. So if you are after comfort, something to consider, because this will of course feel a little bit softer on the road. Still got a firmer feel, because obviously the faster a car goes, the more power it needs to put down, the stiffer the suspension. But of course, if you are considering, it's definitely something to factor in and try out both if you are kind of striving for that comfort on the road. Having said that, I still like the A45 S. So then guys, when it comes to price, as I mentioned earlier, if you spec'd up an A35 and gave it Premium Plus, it would have almost the same gadgets as the A45 S. And then you've got that £12,000 price difference. But the question is it worth it? Well, for me personally, I would love both of these cars, to be honest, but I would probably sway more towards an A35 just because that ticks all the boxes for me and certainly would put a smile on my face every day. However, if I was at the traffic lights and then an A45S pulled up, would I regret buying an A35? Well, that's the question, you know, that both are incredible bits of kit. I guess this one is mainly aimed at the kind of Mercedes-AMG performance enthusiasts. You know, if you want everything that Mercedes-AMG can offer, that one's a no-brainer. And of course, you've got those amazing stats, performance, and just everything that goes in that unique package. It's a head turner. And I do love that grille. Shame we can't have that grille on that one. But guys, what would you pick? Let me know in the comment section down below. We're in 2022 now. So, you know, new year, new car. What would you pick if you had to choose out of these two? I think I'd sway more towards the A35 mainly because of price. But having said that, that is on this year's Christmas list for sure. So, yeah. Let me know what you guys would choose. Pop it in the comment section down below. I'm eager to hear what everyone thinks, because for me personally, I sway towards that one, but I want to hear what you guys think. And there we have it, guys. That concludes this week's video on the comparisons between the Mercedes-AMG A35 and the 45 S. Amazing bits of kit. So, thank you so much for watching. Do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below. And as always, huge shout out to Sandown Mercedes-Benz for allowing access to all the cars you see in the videos. It'll be very tricky to do it without them. This is the first video of 2022. We'll see you all next week.